Hey guys, this is Katie. I'm going to talk to you this week about the book that I read called What the Night Sings by Vesper Stamper. This book was about the Holocaust and how a girl named Gerda, I believe that's how you say it, she had, when she was 14, she was put into a concentration camp. She was taken away from her family, and she was actually went through three different um, concentration camps, and it kind of shows her struggle of surviving. And when she did survive, she was trying to find herself and get back into her music. um, I chose this book because I've always really liked reading about the Holocaust, and I've always been interested in that point in time. When I was younger, I went to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. My uncle brought me, and that really kind of sparked my interest on the whole topic. So I was really excited to read this, and it was an amazing book. But it was also very sad. But I really did enjoy reading it. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is if I would use it in my classroom. And seeing that I'm a fifth grade teacher, it would kind of be hard to teach that only because of the content is really heavy for fifth grade. I think some part of the books would really um, kind of upset my students because it's so rich, and I think a lot of the kids would just feel bad. I mean, everybody should at that point in time in history, but I do think that fifth grade is a little young to talk about such bad things that happened to people at that time. However, I have had a few students read topics like Malala, that book that came out a few years ago, and I had one student that really, really loved that book. And I mean, again, the content was heavy, but she read it and realized, the struggles that people go through. Um, I think this would probably be better as a whole class reading, especially if I was going to do this with my students. It would be way easier in a whole class than small group, for reasons being of the content being so heavy, and some of the words, especially some words that were German, they wouldn't probably be able to understand or pronounce. And it's easier to have a conversation and a discussion with the whole class, so the students can get, other information from other students, maybe if they didn't catch some part in the book and one did. So I would definitely do it whole group, but I think it would still be a little hard in fifth grade to be able to do that. But I definitely think this is an amazing book, and anybody should read it. Um, let's see. Sorry, I'm just reading off my notes. I'm terrible at talking to people. Um, so I would think definitely, um, with this book, Gerda, she's finding herself. She is just coming out of a concentration camp, her third one. She's lost her family. Her father died. Her mother died before she was in the concentration camp, but she was still, hurting. She's lost her whole family. She's determining whether she thinks it was her stepmom that gave them up to the government. So she's really trying to find herself and starting all over again. Before she was in the concentration camp, she was really into music, and her stepmother was her teacher. And she was an opera singer, and she was starting to get into solos and finding her career. And this whole time, she had no idea that she was Jewish. Nobody ever told her. Her father tried to keep it from her, so the government wouldn't find out. He didn't want her telling anybody. And now she is trying to love her religion and her faith, and she's trying to find herself while struggling with her past and her future. She meets a boy that she knew before in this concentration camp that survived with her. And, they go through a lot throughout the book with flashbacks of them, and current situations also. And they kind of talk about her struggle and how she continues to live and start all over. And I truly think that story in itself would be amazing for students to hear. I live in, or I'm sorry, work in a school district that is high poverty, and I really think that this story would show students that even the worst of situations you can get out of. I have a lot of students that come from poor families and they have hard times in schools, which is completely understandable. But at the same time, this book shows them that no matter how hard of a situation you're in, you can always better yourself, and you can try to get out and help yourself to make your life better, to make you a better person. And this story just blows everything out of the water. It really truly shows how hard people can work, and show that you can come from absolute destruction, family and mentally, physically, everything that she was put through. And that is, if you think about it and you try your hardest, you can get out of it and you can survive. Um, so I really think that this book would have a great story and a great learning experience for my students, especially. Now, again, in fifth grade, they probably would take it a little different because they're not used to the background history on the Holocaust. So I would definitely bring in a thematic unit for this. I wouldn't just start by reading the book. They would need some background information on what's happened in the past, and how everything happened. And, you know, the definitely the time that it happened. It's not recent. It's not happening right now. It was in the past. But at the same time, things like this are happening all over the world. Not necessarily concentration camps, but definitely, racism and sexism and, different things like that are happening all over the world, and they need to be aware of these things. And this was one of the biggest mass destructions in history. So when you think about it, it's really important for students to know this, but I definitely think in order to read this book, they need to know more about it. Now, whether it's appropriate for their age level or not, if I was going to teach that, that's what I would do. Um, Again, I really loved this book. I wish that I was able to read it in my class, but I think that I'm I mean, I'm in the middle of a book right now with my class, and I definitely think that this would be beneficial for some students to read. But, it all depends on where you are and how mature your students are, because some students definitely wouldn't be able to handle this book. But again, I really did love this book. I can't wait to read more books like this, especially from this author, because I thought she was really fantastic. So I hope you like this video, and I hope you read this book. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. Thanks.